What's up, everybody? We are making lunch. So we decided that we wanted to do like a one skillet meal. We're kind of just getting rid of some stuff that we've got in the fridge. So I chopped up, this is half a white onion. Just kind of cut it into little strippies. And then we had a few mushrooms left over, so we cut those up. This is a red pepper, or half a red pepper that we just cut into some little strips. And then what Marisa is doing is she's taking some ground beef that we had and she's turning it into ground beef patties. And she's using our patented Burger Masher 3000. This is a plastic bag that we cut down the seam so that it opens up, and then you can just use something heavy like this bowl to press them flat. So once she gets back over here, she can demonstrate how that works. And while she's doing that, I am going to peel some potatoes, I guess. Let me grab something to peel those into. So hey, how's everybody doing? You're being very quiet.
Oh, am I supposed to talk?
Did you?
I don't know.
Oh.
I'm making patties.
You want to talk through what you're doing?
Sure. I have some of the half the ground beef here. I just added salt and pepper to it, nothing very fancy. I'm gonna mix it up with my hands and then use the Burger Masher 3000 to make the actual patties themselves. It's like Jason said, it's just the plastic bag with the like cut open, and yeah, it's a really simple way to make quick patties.
So something that I learned that kind of changed my life is how to actually use a Y peeler properly. So check this out. So this thing is set up and it's actually sharp on both sides, right? But I've always just used it like, oh, I'll just do it this way. But you can kind of just like scrub the top of your veggies and the skin comes off in both directions. And I always forget to do it, and I just remembered, which is why I wanted to share. So yeah. What's up? What's everybody cooking today? What's your go-to quarantine meal now that everybody's home and I presume having to cook a little bit more? I'm very curious about this. So ours has been what have we been making?
We've been making a lot of fried rice.
Oh yeah, fried rice. That's a dope quarantine meal because it's so easy. It's delicious. You can put whatever you want in it. And it keeps. So we have like a big bucket in the fridge of old rice, and whenever we're feeling fried rice, we just throw that together. Takes very little time. Yeah, Vinny, this is a game changer. It's like, look at that. Look how fast it happens. It happens so fast. It's really something else. So what we're going to do today is we are going to do this whole meal with the exception of the potatoes in a single skillet. What we're going to do with the potatoes is we're just going to cut them up to be roughly French fry shaped, and then we're going to bake them like that because we have a shitload of sweet potatoes and we need to use them before they start to go bad on us. So this is maybe half of the sweet potatoes that we have, so we've got to do this a couple times to make sure that we don't waste food.
Hi, Tony.
What's up, Tony? So yeah, we are doing our best here to just kind of make use of stuff that we didn't know what else to do with. Like we typically we get a CSA. Well, not quite a CSA, but like a weekly delivery from local farmers, which thankfully is still happening. They just leave a cooler full of food outside the door, and we just tell them like we want to spend this much a week, and we know for sure that we don't want, you know, whatever it is. Like, we don't want loose leafy greens because we know we don't use them, and so we don't want to waste food. So we just kind of let them pick whatever's in season, minus the stuff that we know for sure we're not going to use, and then they bring us a box of stuff. And so this is what showed up in the box, and it was like a pretty decent number of sweet potatoes. So we had those, we have some mushrooms. These are chestnut mushrooms. I should have waited. I wish I would have waited to do it, but I'll show you. Yeah, let me try to hold this up close. I don't know if you can even see what that looks like, but these are like...
They're weird.
They're weird. They're like tiny mushrooms. Let me see past you.
They're my least favorite mushroom. I really like
They're
mushrooms.
like really tiny caps, and they kind of like explode out on longer stems.
They look like a mistake and like something you would not want to put in your mouth is what. They're gross looking, but they taste okay.
They are pretty gross looking, but they do taste nice. So we're gonna use those because we've had those in the fridge, and those I think have a pretty limited shelf life before they start to get kind of like slimy. So we're gonna try to make sure we use that. We do need an emote for Marisa.
I've been making bread too, Vinny. I just finished some sourdough.
She videotaped it, so there's going to be a video tutorial of Marisa making sourdough, which, what was that thing you were telling me yesterday about baker's hands?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's so cool and gross. So a lot of the yeast that, when we think about yeast, a lot of times people assume, oh, well, you know, there's yeast in the air, that's how we get sourdough starters, which is true. There is yeast in the air, and that is one way, but a lot of the yeast is on our hands. The majority of yeast actually is on our hands.
Nothing?
And they did a study of bakers' hands, and bakers actually have completely different bacteria on their hands than people who don't bake. Specifically if they're baking things like sourdough bread, their entire microbiome on their hands changes. And so what that tells us is that their hands become more adept and adaptable for the bread that they're making, and also that every time we eat bread from different places, we're actually eating a microbiome of that place, which is fascinating. And the same kind of thing happens with cheese, which is just fascinating, which is why you can only get certain types of cheeses in certain places in the world, because the environment is just so specific to that region. Anyway, it was fascinating. It was a TED article or something, if you want to look it up.
That's something that I've always kind of thought is really cool. Like when you get wine, right? Like if your wine is from France, then it's a certain type of wine, even if it's the same grapes. Like we learned that Zinfandel, for example, is based on a type of grape that is actually from Croatia. But in Croatia, I believe, is that Malvasia?
Malvasia.
Yeah, Malvasia wine in Croatia is the same grape that we use in Zinfandel elsewhere. But because of the terrain, because of the elevation, because of the, you know, all the like what's in the soil, like all these different things that happen in the growth of the grapes, and then the treatment of them once they get harvested, like all of those things change the way that the thing tastes. And so that's just like fascinating to me, because that's true about a lot of different stuff. So Marisa just talked about bread and cheese. It's true about like whiskeys. It's true about what else?
It's also totally true about the pizza, Vinny. Like the environmental conditions are such that's why New York pizza is so good. I totally agree.
So I don't know if you've ever been to the Secret Pizza Bar in the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. Like I don't know if it's still there. This was years and years ago that I did this, but in the Cosmo they had this like secret pizza bar upstairs, and that bar would straight up fly in water from New York so that the pizza had like the same pH levels and makeup as the pizza that would be made in New York. And you know, I'm not from New York, so I don't have the ability to like make that call as to whether or not it's actually good.
How do you want to do this? Cut it in half and then strips, or?
Yeah, let's do that. Let me grab a knife and we'll tag team that. But so, according to a friend of mine who does live in New York, that is absolutely, it works. Like, it's actually good. and it actually tastes like pizza from New York because they flew it in the water.
I don't
So
know
yeah,
how to do this.
weird. All right, so
What do you
cut
wanna
it.
do? Cut
Yeah,
it
let's
in
cut it
half?
right in half. Cut the tips off because well, we can keep the
No,
tips.
we
That's
can
fine.
keep the tips.
So-
But the half and half, right?
Cut in half again.
Yeah. Just so we've got a flat surface, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it makes it easier to deal with. All right, these I don't want the tips off.
I took a knife class last year. Clearly I learned a lot.
Do you want me to do this and you can start the
That's
skillet?
how bad I am. Yeah.
Talk through how you're gonna do the. Well, actually, I'm thinking about times because
Yeah.
these are gonna go in. This is gonna take what, 20 minutes?
It's gonna take the longest of everything. It needs to go in first.
Oh shit. Okay. All right. Let me do this fast then.
That means I don't have to do it. I am the slowest cutter you've ever seen.
I'm also worried about someone losing a finger. So I'm just gonna cut these into little chunks about like this. I wanted to bake fast is why I'm doing that. And so, are you gonna?
I'm gonna put oil in this,
Okay,
olive
perfect.
oil, so we can toss them.
Sean scares the bejeebus out of me every time I make a knife. Yeah, so Iko, we are making a one skillet meal except for the sweet potatoes that I'm cutting up now. We're just gonna bake those because we need to use them. So we've got some basic burger that we got, and we're going to use, we've got onions, mushrooms, and peppers that have been in our fridge. We wanna make sure they don't go bad. So we're going to take those and cook them in a skillet. We're actually gonna use the burgers, we're gonna cook those, and then use the fat from the burgers to cook the rest of the vegetables, and then put the burgers back in, so it kind of just becomes this nice, you kind of reuse the fat from the meat, so you're not adding additional fat. We absolutely will cook the burgers in some butter, because if you don't put butter in a meal, are you really cooking at all? It's not a call out to people who don't use butter, I'm sorry. But you know, in this house, we put butter on everything. We have like unreasonable amounts of butter in our fridge. What do we have right now? Like 4 boxes of butter?
I don't know, I blacked out and just bought all the butter I could see.
It's a lot
That's
of
not
butter.
true, but I did buy a lot of butter.
Yeah, we have, and that's just like, we just use a ton of butter. So we have high butter
I'm gonna reach
turnover.
over you. Just,
Safety.
yeah,
I'll start throwing them in
yeah,
there.
that's good.
But yeah, so these, you want to talk through how you're going to prep those?
Yeah, so I put some oil at the bottom, well, the bottom's covered now. I put some oil at the bottom of this bowl, it's just olive oil, and I am going to just toss these in olive oil with salt and pepper, and then we'll put them on the baking sheet laid out, and just bake them until they get caramelized on the edges. I don't know how long it's gonna be, I just know that they're gonna be the longest thing to cook. So I have the oven at 450, that's usually a good temperature for root vegetables. And we're just gonna do some like baked sweet potato fries. They should be good. We typically do all our root vegetables like this. It's very simple, hard to mess up. The only thing is you can't actually put parchment on the baking sheet. Since I bake like so many cookies and things like that, I always use parchment paper, but you can't do that when you're doing vegetables, otherwise it won't caramelize correctly. And then you just get a soggy cooked vegetable.
It's worth stopping for a minute to talk about that caramelization because like, I didn't think I liked vegetables for a really long time. I grew up in a house where we didn't really cook. My mom wasn't like, she just didn't like it. So a lot of the stuff we had was just quick and easy meals, things that could be done that were either pre-made or that were really, really fast from mixes, things like that. So a lot of the vegetables that I had when I was a kid were like those freezer steam packs that you could get and microwave, or you know, canned corn and green beans and that sort of stuff. And so for a long time, I thought that I just didn't like vegetables at all. Then, fortunately, I started working at a restaurant when I was younger, and the chef there decided that I was going to be his project because I was a picky eater when I showed up. You know, I was 14 when I got the job, and so I wouldn't eat any of the food at the restaurant, and he made me his project. He decided he was going to fix me, and so he would feed me all sorts of, like, whatever he found, and it was when I started to realize that, like,
I'm gonna reach over you.
getting the caramelization right on vegetables, for example, makes a huge difference. You know, the overarching lesson is that I've learned that just about everything tastes amazing when it's prepared by somebody who is interested in preparing it and who knows what they're doing. Like, we were at a restaurant where the chef had prepared, like, sweetmeats, which is like the weird stuff from the animal, inside of squid. Like, so stuffed squid full of the weird stuff from inside the animal. And to this day, that is one of the, like, top 5 best bites I've ever put in my mouth. I would never eat that. It is not something that I'm particularly fond of. When I go to other restaurants and try it, I don't like it. It's just that that particular restaurant, the chef, that was their specialty. It was the thing that they loved the most. And so you could really taste the care that went into that meal, which I think is really, you know, it shows. So anyways, the whole point that I was trying to make is that getting the caramelization right on your vegetables is such a big deal. And so letting them sit in the pan until they crisp up, or having them sit on the sheet pan as opposed to wrapped in tin foil or something where the steam gets trapped in and they kind of get soggy. I'm a huge fan of, like, almost burning them. Like broccoli, for example, I'll leave it in the pan until the tips start to go black, because then you get this really, really amazing kind of char flavor with it that is really, really wonderful. And you know, it like kind of changed the way that I look at vegetables.
You made a grievous error on the amount of sweet potatoes we're doing.
We sure did. It's okay. We'll have a lot of sweet potatoes. These will keep for a day or so, so we'll just eat them with dinner too.
Can you freeze them? I don't know. Can you freeze sweet potatoes? I've never tried freezing cooked sweet potatoes.
Let's not.
No?
I don't know. I feel like freezing everything, unless you can do it really, really fast, tends to go pretty poorly.
Well, you can try it. It's not like we have
A billion sweet potatoes.
Yeah. How many was this? 3?
I think this was like 400 pounds of sweet potatoes. Are you, so PDX Insomniac, that is actually, are you using Milk Run? Like, I'm assuming from your username that you're in Portland. Is that Anton? Is that right? If you are using Milk Run, they'll deliver. Rebel Meats is still delivering. You can also, a lot of local butchers and stuff right now are hurting. Like, they need support, they need help. And so, like, our favorite local pork butcher is taking email orders. So we can email them and they'll send us what they've got, and then we can just say what we want, and they'll either do a curbside delivery where we pull up and they will kind of like load it into the car and we just pay them online, or they will actually pack and ship it to us if we want that as well. So it might be possible to get, like, really high quality meat and support local businesses right now, no matter where you are. So if you're on lockdown, check into that, because, like, Instacart has been completely unusable. Amazon Fresh, completely unusable. We can't get deliveries, we can't make anything work like that. But all our local spots, they're like, nobody's there. They're not getting business. So we're trying to direct our business there when we can. And most of them have been super accommodating about making sure that that works.
Alright, so I've added olive oil to this, and I'm just mixing this in. I don't want them to be super soaked with olive oil, just enough that they're a little bit slippery. The olive oil helps them caramelize as well. So if you think, oh, well, I like butter, I'll do it with butter, that won't work as well. I wish I knew why. There's something about the type of fat in olive oil versus butter that I don't fully understand, but when you want to brown or caramelize something, they always call for olive oil and not butter first. So a good example of that I do a lot of sauteed mushrooms, and the first thing you do is heat the oil in the skillet and then put the mushrooms in at a high temperature. If you do that with butter, they just get mushy. But if you do it with olive oil, they caramelize. So take that for what it's worth. I'd have to look it up. I don't understand the science behind it. But that's why we're using olive oil instead of butter for that. And then we just do some salt and pepper. Again, this is just gonna be kind of simple stuff. We're kind of winging it here today, so.
Also, Marisa baked bread, right? She made fresh bread. Let me show you this bread. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this bread. Oh, it's gorgeous. So this is a sourdough loaf made by Marisa. It is going to be amazing. And because we have fresh bread, I was thinking about using it for something else, and Marisa had this really good idea to do cheese bread with it. So we're also going to just broil up some cheese bread, which I'm so excited for this.
So my grandma used to make me cheese bread, which is not grilled cheese.
Let's do it like this, so we can see what's going on.
So my grandma used to make me cheese bread, which is literally just, you put cheese on some bread and put it on under the broiler, and it gets all like crispy, and you don't put anything else on it, but the cheese like melts into the holes and cracks in the bread, and kind of changes the texture of the bread as well, dries it out a little bit like toast. I don't know, it's really good. It's one of my favorite things. Nothing fancy at all, but I love it, and I honestly kind of like it even more than grilled cheese. It's not really, like grilled cheese is really rich and tasty, but very rich. And this is just, I don't know, it's just a great vehicle for getting cheese into your face, so.
And when you can do it on like fresh baked bread, like that bread is less than an hour old, right? So
Yeah.
this is, I've been kind of like, just thinking about it, I'm like, oh, like my mouth is just watering.
Do we need a second pan?
I'm gonna make that your call.
I think we should.
Do you want to just pull some of it out and we can not cook that?
Oh, absolutely. All right, so I don't want to overcrowd the pan, otherwise these aren't going to caramelize. They're just going to create a bunch of steam
Okay, that's probably good.
and not actually cook. And then they'll be all mushy and gross. No, it needs some more room.
Okay, you pull them out and I'll start.
There you go. So you want to give a little bit of space so that they can crisp up on the edges. If they're touching each other, they won't do it.
Basically, we're social distancing our sweet potatoes
Yeah,
for
Safety.
maximum caramelization.
maximum flavor.
Okay, so I'm also just flipping them over to be a flat side down because I want that to cook on pan and be nice and cooked in. Like as these start to cook, they'll start to release their moisture, and as they release the moisture, that will allow it to kind of create this nice seal with the pan that is really, really delicious. And that, I think, is good enough. I'm gonna let that roll.
Tony said we could try it with oil and butter.
Try one with oil and butter.
I think doing the vegetables with oil and butter and then add some onions.
On the roast?
I think so. Might be interesting to try.
Yep. Yeah, I think that might definitely work. I mean, I've never complained about having butter on stuff. Do you want to chop some butter up into this?
There's butter right there.
Okay, so I'm just gonna give this a quick.
You can use some of the onion.
Alright, so I've made a nice little mess of the butter. We can just spread that around and that will.
We do it like we do the carrots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's try it.
Should we put a little more in there? Doesn't seem like very much.
Do you want me to cut that and you want to put some onions in?
I don't know that we want to
You
put
wanna
onions
put
in. I
onions
would
in?
put onions in this.
Ugh.
I think maybe one experiment at a time. We don't need to melt it, Eco, it'll melt. So what this is basically going to do is just kind of turn into a little flavor puddle, which I am very on board with. So about another tablespoon. So what does that make? Like 2-ish tablespoons of butter in here?
Yeah, it's 2.
So 2 tablespoons of butter for 1 sheet pan. That should give us a good chunk of butter flavor without being over the top. So should we maybe add a little more salt and pepper this, you think?
Yeah, go for it. I ran out of salt in the ramekin.
Oh, okay, here, hold this. Alright, let's bust out the salt. So we've got our Jacobsen kosher sea salt, we'll just toss that over. And we are desperately low on peppercorns, so we don't have any pepper right now, which is kind of breaking my heart. We have like this tiny little bit left, but I'm gonna use some of it.
Oh, okay. Didn't see that coming.
I mean, we want it to taste good, right? Like,
No.
yeah, we'll just have to, you know. Alright, so these go in for what, 20 minutes?
They go in until they're done, probably 20, I don't know.
Okay. So I'll set a timer so we don't forget to check them. We'll give it 20, we'll see how it goes. And in the meantime, I can move this out of the way. And then I think we start with the skillet, right?
Yeah. So there's already butter in there.
Right. And it is melted. So it just by virtue of being on the stove with the oven on, it has already melted. So we've got it on our big burner. How hot do you want it?
Put it on, I want to kind of sear it a little bit, so put it on high.
Okay, so we've got the gas range going. I put it on high. We've got a quick boil burner, which is like super hot. So this will come up to temp pretty quickly. And because it's cast iron, like cast iron takes a minute to heat up, but then it holds its heat really well. So what we're trying to do here is we're going to get this up to temperature, and then we can reduce the heat down to just where we want it, and that extra heat in the cast iron will stick around and help us get a nice even cook on things. That's going to take a second. You might want to wait for that to like even start to just barely smoke.
I'm not waiting that long, I'm waiting for the butter to brown a little bit. I hate this part, the waiting. It's the worst.
That's
There we
what
go.
that's
Starting
what
to
Tom Petty said.
I believe you.
Huh? Okay, so while we're waiting for that to get hot, let's talk a little bit about the order of operations here. So, when you're cooking vegetables, different vegetables cook in different lengths of time, right? So if you're cooking garlic is going to cook really fast. So if you put it in high heat, it's going to brown, it's going to burn before the other vegetables are done. Something like a pepper is going to cook slowly. So, and with mushrooms, basically what we've discovered with mushrooms, and like people who know how to cook or are trained to cook may disagree, I've kind of discovered that you can't overcook a mushroom. Like if you just let it sit and saute, it just continues to absorb flavor, and it becomes a little like butter and fat and seasoning and other flavor sponge, which is, in my mind, that's like what mushrooms were born to do. It really is like fantastic. So our order of operations is typically to do mushrooms first, let them start to cook down. Once the mushrooms start to look cooked, we will throw in the peppers. The peppers we're throwing in to get a little bit softened, and then once the peppers start to look softened, then we'll throw in the onions, because the onions will actually get soft relatively quickly. And we want this meal to still have some texture to it. Like we want a tiny bit of crunch from the onions and the peppers. So we're not trying to get them like cooked down. We're not going for like the fajita veggie style where they're cooked down just for like flavor. We want texture too, so we're gonna leave them a little bit less cooked than a full like soggy saute, right? Which sink? You thought what sink was the butter?
Is that sink?
I don't have a sink.
That sink.
I'm not sure. I don't know what he's talking about. Okay, so while we're waiting for all of this, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup. So you may have noticed that we have all this stuff prepped already, and we did that very intentionally. If you read my blog, I talk about mise en place a lot. This is a concept from cooking where you want everything to be prepped before you start cooking, because that way you're not realizing that you've got 10 seconds before that is done cooking, but you've still got to dice up an entire onion or something. So that's like, get everything sliced, make sure it's all measured, we know how much we're going to use. So now when it comes time to actually cook, we're dumping bowls into the pan instead of like having to read the recipe. Oh, okay, next we need mushrooms. It's like, all right, so mushrooms, then peppers, then onions. We just go mushroom bowl, pepper bowl, onion bowl, with no measuring, no chopping, no thinking really. It's just gonna work.
So I'm just waiting for it to cook up the sides here. Get a little bit browned on the edges, and then I'll flip it. I once had someone teaching me about making these hamburger patties. And he was very adamant about only flipping it once. I don't know that it really matters. I think it helps with the caramelization. Again,
it matters.
That's a huge thing. But it wasn't Jason that taught me. It was somebody else. But he was very adamant about only flipping it once. And so I have never forgotten that. And so I never flip the burgers twice if I could avoid it. It's important to just watch so that you know when it's done.
There's a reason for that too. The reason to not flip the burger more than once is that the moisture in the meat is, every time that you like press on a burger or agitate it, you're just letting more and more of the juices come out. That's the same reason that you rest meat after you've cooked it, is all the meats when they're cooked start to try to escape. You know, they start to boil out of the meat. So once you take it off the heat, you need to give it time for those juices to reabsorb. Otherwise what you're gonna get is a big puddle of like juice, and that's a bunch of flavor. That'll be a puddle on the plate instead of being in the meat that you're eating, which is a huge bummer.
So the key is patience, of which I have very little. As you can see by me really wanting to flip these. Why'd you do that?
Just give me that.
Why'd you throw that out of my hand? I wasn't as excited about these burgers until I started cooking them. Thank you.
Yeah, now that I can smell them, I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted. Okay, so I'm gonna give this a wipe down, and then I'll start prepping for the cheese bread so that can go in. Now we have an oven that is it's a gas oven, so that means that the burner that runs the oven is the same burner that runs for the broiler, just at the bottom. So I think, I haven't tried this before, so this is going to be an experiment, but I think what will happen is, right now I believe the burner is on, like the broiler is on. So if I just put the cheese bread underneath in the drawer.
I don't think that's true. You can try it.
We can try it, and what we can also do is we can switch over to broiler for the last couple of minutes.
Can you get me a plate, please?
Quit touching that is not done.
I need a plate though.
You got a plate, do you not want to use this one?
No, raw meat on it. No, to the plate?
I'm getting it. Hey.
You're slow.
You're slow. brought you a plate.
I already have one. I don't need it.
Do you want to do cheddar or Havarti on the cheese bread?
I want cheddar.
Alright, so this is kind of a fun thing. It's like beeswax coated paper that we use instead of saran wrap, which is really nice and reusable. We can just wash this. So I'm going to take this little paring knife and we're going to cut up some cheddar. Okay, so first and foremost, whenever you are cutting cheese, you gotta check to make sure it's still good. Still good. Then I'm realizing now I probably should have shredded this. But this will be okay.
The cheddar's in the...
We can try it two ways, because that's about enough for one thing. And I'll get the... Okay, so I've washed the cheese grater, and we're just gonna try and experiment, right? Because it wouldn't be an episode of Learn with Jason if I didn't do something that could definitely explode. So I'm just gonna shred some cheese.
You want me to put the leftovers in first, right? You
Yep.
said it. Alright, so now I'm just cooking the vegetables in all of that fat. Because flavor. Fat is flavor.
Flavor Town. Yeah, we'll do it that way. That'll be fun. Okay, so I've got my pile of shredded cheese that we're going to put on one of these slices, and then I've got my slices of cheese that are going to go on the other one. I think this one's actually going to have more cheese on it, but I think this one's going to cook better, which will be kind of an interesting experiment because what do we like more cheese or a better cooked cheese? Let's find out. So I have
And then
this loaf of bread. What's up?
peppers or onions?
I would do
I don't
peppers
remember.
next. Yeah, peppers.
So I'm just letting each of the vegetables get a little bit of a... Alright, let the mushrooms brown up a little bit. And once those look seared and browned, I added the peppers. And then after that, we'll add the onions. And then this can kind of just sit until we're ready. And we're going to put this on top of the burger.
Look at the inside of this bread. It's so good. It's so good. It's amazing. Hey, what's up, Ryan? How you doing? Okay, so let's do our test here. So on the first piece of bread, did you want me to butter this or anything?
Not mine, you can butter
No?
it.
Okay, no, we're going straight in, just cheese.
Put it on a sheet pan.
Yep. So we've got a piece of bread. We've got some shredded cheese on it. We're just going to make sure we use all of that. Good. Alright, so that's piece one. Piece two. Do something kind of like this. We'll see how it goes. I already have a favorite in this race. I'm already upset that I didn't do shredded cheese on both. It was a mistake. It was a mistake, and I'm gonna
Lessons
pay for
learned.
it. So now I can get the other sheet pan, which is actually might already be in here. Let me Yep, I've already got a sheet pan down in the broiler. How are these?
That's where that went.
Okay, so those are starting to look good, but how do you think 6 minutes is enough?
No.
Okay, so we're gonna let that sit for another 5 minutes, and then once that hits, you wanna do 10 minutes?
5 minutes isn't. Oh, I just changed it to 10 minutes.
Okay, so I'm
Just
gonna,
double the time.
that's fine. I'm gonna let it get to 5 minutes, and then when it's at 5 minutes, I'm gonna switch the oven over to the broiler. That'll keep the oven hot, but it'll turn the burner on in the bottom so that we can melt this cheese really fast.
I think you might be right.
Well, I don't know when
I think it might be on.
but I think it only turns on when it needs to regulate the temperature, where the broiler is gonna be on all the time.
But
Like I think the way the oven works is that when you turn it on to bake, it turns on the oven to heat, and then it turns off the burner when it reaches temperature, whereas the broiler just stays on.
Yeah.
And that's what we want, is we want it to just stay on. Did I lose my
What do you want?
towel?
What towel?
I had a towel.
You did?
Aha, found it. Okay. So at this point, we're pretty much just waiting. Like, there's not a lot left to do. So, just clear that sweat. It's getting warm in here. Guess that one's dirty now. What else? Just start cleaning up after myself. So, one of the things that I've tried to get good at, because it always makes me sad, is like when I'm cooking, I try to clean as I go, so that I don't have a wrecked kitchen once the food is done. And that makes it way more fun for me to cook, because then I'm not like, it's not like every time I cook I have this giant mess in the kitchen that I have to deal with later. So as we go, we can just start putting stuff away. So like, these are the cheeses. I didn't use this Havarti, so I'm gonna put this back away. And we'll put away.
You said you had a plan for the onions. You said something about.
When are those looking crunched?
I don't
like-
know what that means, and I wasn't paying attention to what you were saying.
No surprise, I guess. So basically,
They're not ready, but I don't know what you're looking for.
I am looking for the onions to be cooked but not soft, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
you know
not
how
done
in,
though.
huh?
They're not done though.
No, these don't look done. But like, I want the peppers and the onions to be
To have a little bit of crunch.
like a little bit of snap
Alright,
left. Like,
that's fine. Okay. I just love the sit.
okay, so these are in good shape here. I'm gonna take all of this over to the sink.
What do you want to do?
I was gonna throw that on top at the end. Yeah.
Alright.
So this is this looks like green onion, but it's actually just green garlic, which, like, this smells really garlicky. So
I should have put that in.
you can throw it in now if you
I
want.
should have put it in the patty.
Ooh, that would have been good in the patty. I would throw this in with like for like
I'm gonna put it in at the, no, I'm gonna
like
put it
20
in the very
seconds,
end. Yeah,
so that
after
it-
I turn the
yeah,
pan off.
just enough to get hot basically. Okay, so I'm
I
gonna
know
take
your
this.
computer, though.
I just went to sleep. It's streaming through there.
Can you have me a
Okay.
fork, please? Just wanna test this onion. See what we got. Oh, I think this is done. Feels done. Yee!
Okay, in that case,
I'm not sure about tasting. Nope, not as hot and shit. You wanna taste it? It's really hot. Oh my god, it's so hot though.
okay, those are so close. Let's add these.
They're 20 seconds close?
Do you not think so? Or you try one. They're very close. You step to the side. I gotta put the thing in. Okay, let's put this cheese bread in.
Hey, 5 minutes on the dot.
swap over to the broiler.
Hopefully the sweet potatoes get done.
Okay, broiler's on high. Sweet potatoes, you know what? If all we have to start is a piece of cheese bread and these burger patties with all these veggies on top, I'm gonna be happy. Those sweet potatoes will be done.
I'm using all of this.
Yes.
Alright, so I've turned the oven, or stove off, because I don't want to actually cook this green garlic too much. I just want it to kind of soak everything up and lightly cook. So it's just cooking with the residual heat that's already in the pan.
Okay. This, if you don't have one of these, this is it's called a bench scraper, which we didn't know what to look for when we were trying to buy it. And so we kept like calling it the wrong thing and nobody knew what we were talking about. This is a game changer because all this stuff, usually you would end up like trying to wipe this down with a rag or with your hand or whatever, and it gets wet and you can't get it off. With this, you basically get all of the big chunks out before you start adding water, and it totally changes cleanup. Like, it makes such a huge difference.
And I just added some salt and pepper there at the end to add a little bit more flavor. It's good to try to add seasoning at every step if you can. And I think that's done.
Yeah,
What's done?
throw the burgers back in.
Just to heat them up, yeah? Or?
Yeah, basically just to get everything incorporated one last time, and then we can serve it up from there. Alright.
I don't think we need to do that, Jason.
Okay. Yeah, serve them up then.
Alright, I need a couple plates.
You're on your own for that. Sorry, I'm covered in soap.
Want to check the sweet potatoes?
Yeah. Just get the rest of this done.
Alright, so these are just little skillet burgers. Hopefully they're tasty.
You got a towel on your butt?
Yeah, I got a towel on my butt.
Quit moving, I need your butt towel.
Well,
Okay, alright, so now, if we got the timing right, these sweet potatoes are,
Check
ooh,
that.
oh, they smell good. That cheese bread is very, very close, just needs maybe another couple of minutes. Right now the cheese is bubbling, but it's not starting to brown on top, so we want to catch it right as it starts to brown. That's going to give it really good crispy bits, as well as some nice, like, melty cheesy bits. It's going to be amazing.
so I'm just
Oh, I'm
using,
so excited.
this is like a little topping so that we can kind of cut into it and have some good vegetables with our delicious burger. Oh my god, so
This is our quarantine workout plan. Is
just lifting the cast iron over and over and over again. And to do squats with it.
cast iron swings.
Yeah. I hope these are
Oh, this
tasty.
looks so good. I just want to taste this garlic. See how it came out. Oh my god.
Is it good?
Oh, that's so good. Mmm. Mmm.
I
Oh.
I also think he's just happy to be here. I think he's hungry.
I am extremely hungry, but I'm also, that came out really good.
Alright, so there we go. There's that. That should have bought us about enough time to get the sweet potatoes out. A minute left.
I'm just gonna go ahead and do one last pass on this. Just to get the rest of the stuff out. So right now, you can see like most of these veggies came out, so I'm just gonna try to get all of them out, because that way our cleanup on this is basically just gonna be to wipe it down.
Put it on yours.
It's one of the really powerful things about cast iron is that like you're actually going for a seasoning of like everything that was in there before. So my goal here is to just very carefully.
Because that cheese bread is about to be done.
It's okay. Cheese bread. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited right now. Okay.
Borrowed time, babe.
We're on borrowed time. All right. So let's get this cheese bread out. Oh, that is gorgeous. Oh my god. I'm so excited about this. Okay. Look at this. Look at this beautiful cheese bread. So, I actually feel like there wasn't a whole lot of difference between the two. So, the slices are, they melted out. And you can see, so the one to my left, this one here, this is the one that had the shredded cheese on it. And this is the one that had the slices. So, this one I think, like the volume is there's a little bit better coverage. This one though, still looks good. So let's just serve these up.
Good idea, mixing the butter and olive oil. That seems to have worked quite well.
Borrow that from me for 1 second.
This?
Yeah. Just got a little bit of stick in there. I think some of the cheese melted through.
Perfect. That's what's supposed to happen.
Okay. Look at that beautiful cheese bread.
Alright.
So I'm gonna situate this a little bit so that we've got room. Oh, you wanna?
Nope, I got it.
Oh no, don't, no. Oh my
He
god.
hates it when I do that.
There's nothing that stresses me out
He hates
more
it so much.
than like carrying food across the kitchen on a spatula.
Okay, but we're not gonna use all of this.
I don't care, just
Well,
whip it around the kitchen.
Don't dump it.
I whip my taters back and forth.
Oh,
You got this?
no.
Do you need an adult? You wanna use both hands?
No, I don't. Stop helping. You're not helping. Okay, that's. Oh no.
Ooh, okay, and so you can see here too, like, check this out. So we got a good, like some of these smaller pieces, they kind of crisped up quite a bit. And then these ones here just have like this nice little bake here, and you can see if I flip this one over, you see that caramelization, that's what we want. That is so much flavor in those little bites.
Alright.
All right, you want to take a bite?
Of which thing?
Any of the things.
I don't know where my fork went. I lost it.
Okay, new fork.
Great.
Okay. There you go. Take some over here. I'm just gonna try one of these fries first.
I'm not. I'm going for the meat.
Mm.
They good?
Mhm. They're cooked all the way through. That's kind of the hard part about potatoes is they take forever to bake through. So by cutting them into fry shapes, they actually cook a little bit faster, which is really, really nice. Okay.
Patty is nice and caramelized. Those veggies are good too.
Getting in. Let's try this. Oh yeah, we got a good cook. It's like cooked through, but it's still juicy.
Oh, that cheese bread is too hot. You can try it if you want, but it's hot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ooh, got cheese bread. Oh yes.
And there's still just a little bit of texture in those peppers and onions, which is nice. I feel like on this meal, it would be a little too soggy if they were all the way cooked. Is it good?
The cheese bread is really good. Like really, really, really hot.
Oh,
I told you it'd be good.
Oh my god.
Because it's got those holes in it, so the cheese just like
Oh, it's so good.
melts.
Oh my
in
God.
there. I know. Okay.
All right, we gotta go eat this while it's still hot. So that's the end of the stream. Thank you so much for coming. I hope that you are. Yeah, Tony, the burgers are under the veggies. So basically, we took all the fat from the burgers, cooked the veggies in it, and then we put the veggies back over. So like, we're kind of just combining all of those flavors. It's really, really solid. Yeah, I think I may have missed a couple of comments. I apologize for that, but I gotta eat this right now or I'm gonna lose my mind. It's so good. I'm so happy. Thank you all for hanging out. I hope you're staying safe out there. And send some messages on Twitter and stuff like, what are you cooking? What would you like to see us try to cook? And, you know, have a good time. Wash your hands. Be good.